It is hardly necessary to point out that Saint Teresa of Lisieux appeals very much to all of us, particularly the women. But her appeal is not limited to women at all, as I can testify from the response of many of us to the flood of light she is able to throw upon how she went about on the spiritual path. There is also a great advantage that she is very close to us in time, almost the time of Swami Vivekananda. And another great advantage is that she was so young. And it astonished me even now, even though I've read these remarks so many times, to remember that these deep flashes of insight come from a girl who is younger than most of you women here. And she, of course, lived in a great monastery, was a very ardent member of the monastic order. But I don't think any of us need conclude that we require a monastic environment to lead the spiritual life. This is where we have a glorious tradition in India. From the time of the Upanishads, more than 5,000 years ago, where little people like me, living in the village, attending school, playing games, participating in all the normal give and take of life, have been enabled through their teachers' blessing and the grace of the Lord of Love to attain complete spiritual fulfillment. This is very necessary for me to repeat over and over again, because sometimes you may be inclined to think that we need to retire from life, go into a sequestered environment in order to realize the self. Not at all. And if I may draw upon my own small example, I did all my sadhana in the midst of a very active and a very productive academic life. That's why I want to remind everyone, if you're a doctor or an engineer or a printer or a librarian or a cook or a gardener, that can never become an impediment to the spiritual life. In fact, following in the footsteps of my grandmother, now that I look back upon it, I think the innumerable difficulties in the academic world, from the university down to the elementary school, became innumerable opportunities for giving respect to people and yet differing from them when necessary, supporting people lovingly and opposing people lovingly when necessary. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think I could have learned this so in so suitable a context as the academic life that I lived for many years. One day, she said to me, "There is only one thing I want, and that is to become a great saint. I can savor this in my mind so many times, like a piece of candy that my nieces used to lick over and over again. I can savor it so many times because that is the secret of steady progress on the spiritual path." Sri Ramakrishna will sometimes say, when ardent disciples around him, drawn to his radiant personality, say, "Why is it that we are not making steady progress?" And Sri Ramakrishna would look at the life and personality of those people and say, "Because you have so many desires." And I think we all start like that, just as I started my sadhana. But it is possible through the practice of meditation and the repetition of the mantra gradually to withdraw our attention from those desires. It is not desires that pose the difficulties, it is the attention we give. And when you try to follow those desires, yield those desires, think about those desires, dream about those desires, you're fattening them up. So don't get dispirited if you start with many desires, but the sooner you start drawing your attention away from them, the more secure you become, the more loving you become, and the more joyful your life becomes, not only for yourself, but for everybody else. For Christmas greetings, I cannot improve upon this one, which must be new to most of you, as it was to me, by Einstein. This little letter he wrote from Princeton to some school children on the 20th December in 35, that's almost Christmas week, and it brings out what exactly is meant by leading the spiritual life, what exactly is meant by celebrating Christmas, which is not only on the 25th of December, but every day of the year. In fact, Christine, we can get a beautiful card next year for Christmas with this letter, which puts into practice what is meant by Christmas. Dear children, it gives me great pleasure to picture you children joined together in joyful festivities in the radiance of Christmas lights. Think also of the teachings of Him whose birth you celebrate by these festivities. Those teachings are so simple, and yet in almost 2,000 years, they failed to prevail among men. Learn to be happy through the happiness and joy of your fellows, and not through the dreary conflict of man against man. If you can find room within yourselves for this natural feeling, your every burden in life will be light, or at least bearable. And you will find your way in patience and without fear, and will spread joy everywhere. See, this is putting into secular language what becoming a saint means. When I think in the early days of this work, when I started using the word saint very cautiously, because it is not used very much in the Hindu tradition, one of the fellows who was with me said, "I thought you had to be dead to become a saint." I replied, "To be dead to yourself. That is all you need to become a saint." When the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi concludes by saying that it is in dying that we are born to eternal life, in practice it means when I turn my attention away from my comforts, my conveniences, my pleasure, my profit, I become completely identified with all of you, which is what has happened through my teacher's example. And when you become aware of the needs of all those around you, you are a living force of love, supporting those who are insecure, opposing those tenderly who are going astray, and showing other people too, helping other people too, through your personal example, in their home, at their place of work, to do the same service, loving service for all. So I'm trying to divest this word saint of its medieval halo. To be saint is to be a living force for good everywhere. You don't have to try. If you go and live anywhere, you will live in such a manner that those around you will benefit. Those around you will begin to change for the better. Those around you will become healthier, happier, wiser in their own personal life. There is only one thing I want, and that is to become a great saint. I like that kind of ambition, which is for the benefit of all. This is exactly what Gandhiji means in the Hindu tradition when he says, when he was asked, "You have no ambition?" "Oh," he says, "I'm the most terribly ambitious person in the world because I want to reduce myself to zero. My self-will to zero." When your self-will has been reduced to zero, you become love itself, and everyone around you will benefit from your life. Because that is the only thing that is real on earth. You can look at the lives of people who have made a lot of money. You can read the lives of people who have become very famous. But in the case of those who have become like this through service of humanity, I think it is very easy to see that money does not make people secure, nor does pleasure make people joyful. I am determined to strive with might and main for this. That's the motivation. And Sri Ramakrishna, with one of his inimitably homely phrases, he will say, "Don't be like damp rice soaked in water." That's a Bengali expression. And you must not only catch fire at these words, you must keep the fire burning. Here again, in practical language, it means that you have to give up some of your old conditioned attachments. You have to turn your back upon some of your old conditioned habits in eating, in working, in returning kindness for unkindness, goodwill for ill will. This is where the practice of meditation gives you the power. It will give you the power, but you have to use it during the many little exigencies of daily life. That's why I began to look upon my campus as a kind of satsang. And it was a complete change in outlook. I had innumerable opportunities to be patient where I would have been impatient earlier, to be concerned only with what I saw for my department only. I am well aware that I cannot accomplish this without suffering, but what a joy it is to suffer for someone you love. She is now giving us one of the most precious secrets of spiritual transformation. I get amazed how this young girl is now giving us the very core of love. I can never get over the wonder of it, that in order to learn to love, in order to know the divine core of romance, we have to go to a beautiful young nun. And if she had written a book on the joy of love, which we hope to do, I think it would have been of help to everybody in the world. The more sacrifices cost you, she used to say, the more you must concentrate on making them cheerfully. The wealth of spiritual wisdom contained in these words, it is only when we try them out that we realize how difficult they are. Our natural tendency is, when the sacrifice becomes a little onerous, we say, why not pass it on to Rick? He needs to grow. This is the usual way, you see. As long as it's within reason, when the nervous system doesn't protest, we'll say, we'll try to make a few minor sacrifices. But when major sacrifices are concerned, we expect others to step into the breach. And Saint Teresa now dares us, you see. Remember, it's like Jessica and Julia daring us, saying, when you have to lose more of your personal pleasures, more of your personal profits, when you're not able to do things which you've always enjoyed doing in your little den, she says, that's the time you can now give. That's the energy you can use for this spiritual work. And she'll say it's going to be terribly difficult, But that is how you fill your life with love, with joy. Never miss an opportunity. For if only you knew the value, Jesus sets on even the tiniest act of self-denial. You'd grasp at every opportunity like a miser going after treasure. All that I can say is I'm lost in wonder at the way she is able to show us how to reduce self-will, how to increase our capacity for love, how to become aware of the self. Christine was reminding me about a little incident in the life of Saint Teresa, where I think while washing clothes, some other nun was splashing at her. I got quite interested because this is something they do in our village pools. In my village, if, for example, Ellen and Roseanne have had a little quarrel, who is going to clean the dishes? Roseanne has got to study, Ellen has got to work. So there has been a little quarrel, and if it were in my village, what they do is they wait until they get to the pool. They don't waste words. They waste water. And in the pool, you will have rocks for cleaning the clothes, beating the clothes to break the rocks, as Mark Twain used to say. And both of them will choose strategic rocks where they can splash the largest amount of water on each other. This is often done. And I don't think it ever occurred to any of them that if one stopped splashing, the other would stop too. That's what my granny used to say. And Saint Teresa, when this older nun went on doing my village thing, to her splashing water, she was quite cheerful. She didn't go away. She must have kept on talking. And she's changing the other person, you know. It's just a little instance which we can apply everywhere. Instead of splashing water, you can use any instance that you like, what all we do when we are provoked. And Saint Teresa says, it is these innumerable little acts of self-denial that enable a person to grow to full stature, that floods the heart with love. And it comes through hard work and practice. And those who can do this from morning till night, their lives will become benedictions on the face of this earth. And she says, you grasp at every opportunity like a miser going after treasure. Every statement is so simple. People who are resentful, who are selfish, they'll go after every opportunity for returning tit for tat. And Saint Teresa is asking us to reverse the entire example. I think we have a very homely story in India, North India, where, as you know, chapatis and potatoes go together. Today I had chapatis. That's why the story came to my mind. And I had potatoes too. Aloo means potato. So they'll always say, aloo chapati, chapati aloo. And there was a spiritual teacher who was having his breakfast with chapati and aloo, seated under a tree on a banyan leaf. He had 2 big chapatis and a big pile of aloo, mashed potatoes. And he closed his eyes to repeat his mantra. And when you are spiritually advanced, when you close your eyes, sometimes you stay on like that for 10 or 15 minutes. And when he opened his eyes, he saw that the chapatis were missing. And there was a boy who had snatched away the chapatis and was running. The spiritual teacher was in good condition, regular walker, trampoline. He was in very good condition. So he jumped up and he ran after this boy. And the boy went faster and faster, but the spiritual teacher at last caught up with him, and the boy got frightened. And he said, here are your chapatis. Are you going to beat me? What do you mean? I said, here is the aloo. How will you eat those chapatis without aloo? This is what I mean by the genius of Hinduism, The whole topic of non-violence, which Michael is expounding in a whole book. Just one little anecdote of chapati and aloo I've done. When our love for another person is wholly spiritual and based on God alone, then as it grows, the love of God in our souls grows with it. These are all words to be etched on our heart. See, this phrase, love of God, she is bringing it down to earth. And when our love for another person, she says, for other people is spiritual, what it means is, when I put Melissa first, Gail first, Sarah first, Sally first, Melissa first in my relationship with them, my love is spiritual. And I should always remember their needs. And when necessary, if they are taking a wrong step, I should put my arms around them, as I do at times, and tell them, I love you too much to let this happen. One can be sure that the relationship will grow more and more beautiful. And this is what love of God means. But it's not enough if one does it only for 1 or 2 people. One should try gradually to do it to everybody. And if I can put it, I have fallen in love with everybody. It's a very satisfying state of romance. To be able to love everybody, to live for everybody, that is what our heart yearns for and what our heart can attain. Teresa says, when we want that and nothing else. The chief cause of your suffering and troubles is that you look at things too much from an earthly point of view. How does it benefit me? What satisfaction does it bring me? Does it ask me to be patient? Then I'm not prepared. I want it now. Does it say that I must aim at the happiness of everybody? These are questions that we can always ask ourselves. Whenever we feel agitated in a personal relationship, the chances are that we are trying to get our own way. And you remember, I tease, it's not Brian's song really. People have started believing it, you see. It may even go into some dictionary as Brian's song. So let's be very careful to correct it now. This is what most people feel. Now, what a beautiful Christmas, because everything is going my way. And what a beautiful Christmas, because everything is going everybody's way, in which mine is included. So I am not excluding mine, I am including mine in everybody's. This is an expansion of joy. This is a multiplication of the dimensions of love. And if we work at it and work hard at it, I don't see any reason why everybody cannot aim at being in love with everybody. So Michael has asked me, for example, about a little canine problem. You know, dogs too sometimes have a little self-will and can get a little resentful. And see, I differ even from obedience schools, as they are called, because I've had dogs for many years. I've cared about dogs, I've learnt about them, and through patience and tenderness, and sometimes very loving firmness, I could take my dogs without a leash on the road. And Michael was asking me, when you have to correct them, what do you do? I said, instead of hitting them, I used to take a newspaper, fold it, and that was a gesture which the dog began to understand. All my dogs began to understand. Finally, all that I had to do was show the newspaper that I was reading. I'll show this, and he'll come back. So everywhere this can be done. You seek your own satisfaction in things to too great an extent, but you won't find any happiness until you stop looking for it. The last sentence can be engraved on the human heart everywhere. As long as you're trying to be happy, you will never be happy. As long as you're looking for your own happiness, you'll never find it. This has been echoed down the centuries to us. And the main reason why in the modern world, in spite of our mighty technological accomplishments, we have not found happiness is that we are always looking for it. Happiness comes to you when you turn your back upon her and go after the happiness of others. In the Hindu tradition again, they will exemplify this by the supreme vision that I ask for every day, and I would want all of you to ask for every day, is to see the Lord in everyone, in every country, all the time. I am not content with a momentary vision in my sleep, or even with a momentary vision on Dillon Beach. I want continuing vision with my eyes open, always seeing the Lord everywhere, serving the Lord everywhere, living for the Lord everywhere. And Teresa concludes by saying, what do you do in order to think of God always? It is not difficult. We naturally think of someone in love. And if you can think of everybody in love, if you can think of all countries, their needs, if you can think of all peoples, their needs, and if you can order your life in such a way that you're always aware that thrift is necessary in the management of Earth's resources, that in everything we have to be thrifty, because there are millions of people who need more food, more clothes, more shelter, more medical help. We are growing in love, falling in love with the Lord of love.